Today's episode is written by Gamal Frank from r/horror stories on Reddit. Working on commercial cargo ships is not the romantic adventure some people think it is. You spend most of your time chipping rust, painting over that chipped rust, and trying to ignore the constant vibration of the engine beneath your boots. This was my first maritime contract as a deckhand, and we were crossing an incredibly isolated stretch of the Pacific Ocean. The crew was already on edge. A week prior, we lost a man named Griggs during a midnight squall. A wave took him right off the starboard deck. We searched for 10 hours, but the ocean swallowed him, so to be clear, the mood on board was grim after that. Everyone kept to themselves. Sullivan, one of the older deckhands, was particularly bitter, as he had been close to Griggs. On a Tuesday afternoon, Captain Harris ordered me down to the lower storage corridors to inventory a shipment of spare engine filters. The lower decks of a cargo ship are essentially a maze of narrow walkways and exposed piping. The fluorescent lights flicker constantly due to the electrical faults in the aging vessel. Approaching the aft storage locker, a sharp copper smell hit my nose. It smelled exactly like a butcher shop left in the sun. Stepping around a stack of wooden pallets, my boot splashed into a puddle of dark red liquid. Sullivan was lying on his back against the steel bulkhead with his eyes wide open, staring blankly at the ceiling. His chest was completely torn open, and entire chunks of flesh and muscle were missing from his ribs, exposing the bone underneath. Panic seized my chest. Stumbling backward, my radio slipped out of my shaking hands. "Captain Harris." My voice cracked over the channel. "You need to get down to aft storage right now. Bring the medical kit." "What is the situation down there?" Harris replied, his voice laced with static. "It is Sullivan. He is dead. Someone killed him." Footsteps ran across the metal stairs a few minutes later. Captain Harris rounded the corner, followed by a young deckhand named Toby. Both men stopped dead in their tracks when they saw the body. "Jesus," Toby muttered, turning around to vomit against the wall. Captain Harris stepped forward. He crouched next to Sullivan, pulling a flashlight from his belt to examine the wounds, but keeping a distance. "These bite marks," Harris said, keeping his voice low. "But there is no animal on the ship." "We need to put him in the freezer," Toby suggested, wiping his mouth with the back of his sleeve. "We cannot just leave him here." "We will move him to the medical bay," Harris decided, standing up and turning toward us. "Lock the door. No one goes in or out without my permission. We are 5 days from the nearest port. Whoever or whatever did this is trapped on this ship with us." We wrapped Sullivan in a plastic tarp and carried him to the medical bay. We locked the steel door behind us, and the rest of the crew was informed. So as you would expect, the ship went into a state of alert. Everyone was paired up, and no one worked alone. Later that evening, Toby and I were assigned to watch the starboard deck. The sun was setting, turning the ocean into a dark purple. Standing near the railing, we smoked cigarettes and watched the water churn against the hull. "You really think a person did that to Sullivan?" Toby asked, flicking his ash into the wind. "I don't know," shaking my head. "The captain said the wounds looked like bites. If a person did that, they are completely insane." Looking down into the water, a large shadow caught my attention. It was swimming just below the surface, keeping pace perfectly with the ship. "Look at that," pointing toward the shadow. Toby leaned over the railing. "Is that a shark?" It was a shark, but it was massive. The creature must have been 20 feet long. Its gray skin was covered in deep, jagged scars, and as it breached the surface, the remaining sunlight illuminated its dorsal fin and gills. Attached to the shark were pulsating red, meaty appendages. They looked exactly like fleshy coral sprouting directly out of the animal's flesh. The appendages throbbed rhythmically, expanding and contracting as if they were breathing on their own. "What is wrong with it?" Toby asked, taking a step back from the railing. "Some kind of parasite, maybe," unable to look away from the red growths. "I've never seen anything like it." The shark paced the ship for an hour before disappearing into the dark water, but the image of those pulsating red appendages burned into my mind. The situation deteriorated rapidly the next morning. Captain Harris called me over the radio, instructing me to meet him at the medical bay immediately. Reaching the door, Harris was waiting outside, holding a piece of cloth over his nose and mouth. "Prepare yourself," Harris warned, unlocking the door. Pushing the door open, the stench was unbearable. It smelled like rotting mushrooms and swamp water. Sullivan's corpse was gone. In its place, on top of the metal gurney, was a foul-smelling, fungal-like slurry. The flesh had melted down into a thick, gray paste mixed with dark red veins, and the slurry was bubbling, eating through the stainless steel of the gurney, with small holes already forming in the metal surface. A human body does not decompose like this in 24 hours, staring at the melting remains in horror. "It is a biological contaminant," Harris stated, his eyes fixed on the bubbling paste. "Whatever got into him is spreading, and it is consuming the metal. If it eats through the deck, we're going to have a massive breach." "What do we do?" "We throw it overboard," Harris commanded. "Right now, grab those hazardous material bags from the cabinet." We double-bagged the remaining chunks of Sullivan using plastic and tape. We carefully scooped the fungal slurry into a steel drum, sealing the lid tight. The entire process was nauseating. Carrying the drum to the edge of the deck, we pushed it over the railing. The steel barrel hit the water with a loud splash. Almost immediately, the scarred shark broke the surface. Its massive jaws snapped open, crushing the steel drum entirely, and before our eyes, the shark swallowed the remains and the metal alike. And then we noticed that the red, meaty appendages on its gills throbbed as it dove back into the deep water. Subscribe to Dread Hub for more horror stories like this one.